Inside of Gray Zone Warfare, we're going to be taking you from having the game looking like this to looking like this. And if we're not able to, I'm going to explain to you why you might not be able to. Without making the video too long, just as a quick plug, like, sub, join the Discord if you need any more help, and I stream sometimes. Check out my Twitch in the description below. With that, I just want to take you over here real quick so I can show you a couple quick things. So we're inside right now. We're using my settings that I'll have listed in the description below, except we are using DLAA, essentially native DLSS, just with the anti-aliasing of DLSS. The biggest thing that contributes to having an unclear image inside of Gray Zone Warfare is this right here, this 3D resolution slider right here. You may be thinking to yourself, Clem, this is grayed out, so how could this have any of an, anything of an effect? I could go to FSR, that's TSR. I could go to FSR right now, and it's still grayed out. It's still at 100. How could this have an effect on my visibility? What this setting tells you is that, for example, if I run at quality FSR, I'm no longer actually running at 100% 3D resolution. This is 67% of your native resolution. So, for example, this right here is 1440p in quotes, but in reality, it's actually just 67% of 1440p upscaled to 1440p using FSR's algorithm. It can be much better than running at the resolution that you would normally be running at, just that base resolution without any upscaling applied, hence why these technologies are a thing. This, as you can clearly see as I begin to drop further and further down the rabbit hole, it gets progressively worse and worse as far as the quality of things is concerned. Do note that when you're setting these two different settings, as it can definitely impact your gameplay, especially at range. It's up to you what you want to run at, but at the end of the day, you need to find a frame rate that works good for you while also having a great image clarity. I have the recommended GPU for the game, a 3070 Ti, so for me personally, if you have a card that is very close in performance to that, I run DLSS with DLAA when I'm off stream, or if things get a little intense, I bump it down to quality, which is 67% of my 1440p resolution. You can see even with DLSS, a arguably superior upscaler, going down to, say, performance at a 50% render resolution still has trouble with the range of things. Not to mention the ghosting and shimmering you get on certain things because of the lower internal resolution is kind of a pain, and it can make aiming at things in distance also a pain. This totally isn't me recording this last second after having the entire video done, but just as a quick FYI, FSR frame generation, which I forgot to mention in the video, is also a detriment to your visual clarity, if you couldn't have guessed. So as you can clearly see when I aim in with my sight here and simply just look around in the sky, you're going to see that ghosting from the fake frames being put in between each of the real ones. And that's why we don't run frame generation right there, folks. If you want the clearest image possible, you're going to have to sacrifice the frame generation, but don't worry too much because those aren't real frames anyway, and they can't collect your input. One thing I wanted to note as well regarding upscaling, and this is probably going to come up in the comments a decent bit, is that the higher you set your upscaling, say from performance to quality, you're going to lose performance. And that's because this 3D resolution is going to be a higher percentage of your native resolution. For example, if I was running, say, DLSS performance, I'm sitting at 50% of 1440p, which is 720p, and I'm getting roughly 60-ish FPS. Bumping this up to quality, though, for example, will take a little bit of a chunk out of my performance. And then, if I wanted to, say, run at native resolution with DLAA, you can see that took a further chunk of my performance. It is for this reason that you want to be careful with how far you push that. Sadly, some people are going to have to use these upscalers. There's no compromise to that. You're going to have to use this if you want to hit high refresh rate, unless you have a very high-end GPU. However, being conscious of what this does to your game is important, and obviously that's why I'm telling you this right here. It's that you know why the game is blurry, and you can adjust accordingly. Besides that, something that I also want to note are these settings right up here, the post-FX options. Let me set this back to my DLSS with DLAA here real quick. These display options are pretty important for you being able to see things in darker areas. Like, for example, that over there. That little cabin right there may be a bit hard to see in for some of you if you're running at the default post-FX. Or I say post-FX, that's a Tarkov thing, but I'm just going to call them the post-FX. So let me set this back down to the defaults here. You're going to see it's a little harder to see inside of that cabinet. Or what is that, a container? Yeah. These settings here can really help you see within darker areas or shadowed areas, particularly with brightness and gamma. These are all personal preference, by the way, so they don't have any effect on your gameplay, but this does help you adjust how the game looks to get a brighter image, say from brightness, or to actually increase the darker tones brightness value with gamma right here. You can see me simply setting the gamma up by 10% drastically improved me being able to see inside of that darker cabinet area right there. Obviously, if I went to turn this up super high, this is obviously way too much, but that is clearly visible now, so you can see the effects in a more dramatized sense. Gamma can reduce the saturation of the image though, so that's why I sort of come back with a little bit of saturation and run these settings. For some of you though, you may be running contrast, and contrast actually increases the values of both darker and lighter objects, or lighter colors. So like for example right here, we have this forest and it's relatively easy to see in there. I mean, it's a bit blurry, but c'est la vie. And as I increase the contrast, you're going to see that it looks like I'm putting it into a KFC deep fryer. All the dark edges are getting extremely dark here, and it's really hard to see, but the brighter areas are getting really bright, making it really tough to see through that. That's why, for the most part, I tend to recommend against using contrast, as it can make darker areas be even harder to see in. Use some gamma and spice it up with some saturation, and set your brightness to whatever you're personally comfortable with. I would say those two things are the biggest things that you should be concerned about when it comes to actually seeing things in Gray Zone Warfare. I covered the rest of the settings inside of my Gray Zone settings guide, and all the timestamps for that are linked in that video, so it's not too hard to bump up over there. I'll link it in the description, and you'll be able to see the descriptions of all these different settings to make your judgments accordingly for these. Long story short though, that's pretty much everything. I just wanted to make a quick video talking about that because I have gotten a good bit of comments talking about the blurriness issue, and I wanted to explain basically where that came from. I have other videos that I'm planning to make regarding Gray Zone Warfare, but I'm having a bit of an issue trying to get things working on my end for some of those videos. I'm putting a good bit of effort in trying to find a solution, but nothing's come up so far. Maybe I'll try to get your guys' help or email the devs at some point, but we'll have to see where that goes. Yeah, I appreciate all your help and all your support on the videos recently. If you have any questions, make sure to join the Discord below, like and sub, all that usual stuff. I mean, you know the drill. I've said it 1,000 times. Yeah, thank you all for being here. Hope you have a great day. And this is Clem, clocking out. Later.